Where should newer riders of the track focus to unlock speed? In this video, we're going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes newer riders make and what you can do to fix them to get some big early wins and begin climbing the track day ranks. So just to reiterate, what we're going to be talking about here are some of the most common mistakes you see from less experienced riders of the track. Riders that have done maybe a few track days and are starting to take things a little more seriously as they work to reach a higher level. Now, these are the mistakes frequently seen by this level of rider, and typically when they're fixed or even just improved, substantial gains come for those riders in little time. So what we're going to do for this is quickly cover the mistake first, and then what you can do to fix it or just improve it so that you can start to see those same substantial gains. Okay, the first mistake is too much coasting. Now, I've heard the word coasting used in different ways, but when I say coasting, what I'm referring to are riders that spend a lot of time off the throttle and brakes when they could easily be used for a longer period of time or to a greater degree. Where this affects newer riders most is on long straights that lead into big braking zones. What you tend to find is riders roll off very early, spend considerable length of time with no throttle or brakes applied, and then when the time comes that they do apply the brakes, they tend to only use a small portion of their potential all the way up to the corner. The way to fix this mistake and gain substantial time is to accelerate for longer down the straight, spend minimal time transitioning to the brakes, and then use more braking potential once they've made that transition. Now, that's the simple answer. The trouble is, riders display the mistake in the first place because they're not confident getting the bike slowed down for the corner. Even maybe if on previous occasions they've noticed that they've been going too slow when they actually reach it. To fix this, we need to change two things. First, the use of reference markers with the eyes. You need a solid braking marker and a solid turn marker or corner entry marker in place. As you head down the straight, you need to be well aware of your braking marker so you know exactly where it's safe to accelerate to and begin braking from. Then once you reach that braking marker and begin your braking, your eyes will flick from there down towards the corner to your turn marker to judge the space you have to the corner. However, this is only one part of the equation. The second, as I alluded to before, is how you're braking. From your solid braking marker, you need to work to use more of the brakes from this point. The hardest braking is done earlier in the braking zone. And as you start to use more of braking potential, you'll see that you actually have a lot more space and time than you originally thought you did. This will allow you to more confidently accelerate for longer down the straight to your braking marker and possibly even push the braking marker back once you realize how much space you really have. Okay, on to the next mistake. Steering too early. When you steer too early into a corner, a part of the corner suffers that is often the most important. The exit. Less experienced riders tend to steer early and slowly into a corner, creating a shallow entry line. This shallow entry line leaves them waiting for the bike to turn, often well past the apex. This restricts how early they can start picking the bike up and accelerating out of the corner. Good exit drive is a key part of fast lap times, and just by altering their approach to achieve an earlier pickup and drive out, they'll be making big gains in no time. Now, steering in early typically comes from a lack of good visual skill and the use of reference markers. This means once again that you want to have a solid marker in place to mark the spot where you want to begin steering for the corner. Having this marker in place and then tracking it on your approach is a surefire way to stop that tendency to just drift into the corner a bit too early, which is going to open up the exit for you and allow for a better drive out of the corner. As a final side note to this, learning how we effectively steer a motorcycle and then becoming more conscious with your steering actions is another factor to being more in control with the entry lines that you create. Okay, this next mistake isn't really specific to one area, but more an overarching tendency, and it is riding blind. A common theme among the two previous mistakes was poor visual skill. In truth, as you've heard me say before, vision is such an important factor for every area of a corner, with a few key components making up good visual skill, but oftentimes newer riders aren't using any of those components. They won't be using markers, or at least not effectively, they won't be looking far enough ahead, and they won't have a wider sense of awareness. Now, the scope of visual skill is really too big for what I want to cover here, but just by having the common markers and moving your vision up and further forward to find them is going to make a drastic impact on how you feel and what you're able to do. If you can more effectively start seeing the space ahead of you, then things will begin to slow down so they don't feel as rushed, and it puts you in more control of your actions through every stage of a corner, meaning less time is wasted. So begin putting the common markers in place through each corner of the track that you ride, and get your eyes up and further forward so that you can begin feeling and acting more in control. Okay, the last mistake I want to cover isn't so much about speed, but more about safety, and that is poor throttle control. In reality, displaying good fundamental skill in every area is going to mean you're riding safer. But given that crashes caused by too much of this are very common amongst less experienced riders, I thought this was worth a mention too. Newer riders tend to display sloppy throttle control. Throttle control isn't just about corner exit, it's how you use the throttle once you've first cracked it open mid-corner all the way through to when you're standing the bike up and driving out hard. For less experienced riders, sloppy throttle control tends to mean rolling on and off the throttle multiple times mid-corner as they judge their speed and the line in the moment. And then at corner exit, the application sometimes can be desperate as they try to make up speed. Now, in the middle of the corner, we want the bike to be balanced. The bike is at high lean, using a substantial portion of the traction that's available from the tyres. To balance the bike, once steering has been completed and we're on the line we want, we need to be getting back to the throttle to not only crack it open, but also perform a slight and continual opening to stop the bike slowing down and even out the weight distribution between front and rear tyres. You will not get a bike that feels more stable mid-corner than in this moment. And as for corner exit and the desperate acceleration, this often comes about because of the second mistake I mentioned here. Turning in too early leaves riders waiting longer to begin their exit drive as they wait for the bike to point up the track to where they want to go. This can turn into impatience and have riders rushing the throttle application to get good exit drive, sometimes maybe even before they've had a chance to pick the bike up. This is dangerous and where a lot of riders come unstuck, literally. Smooth throttle control means cracking the throttle mid-corner and performing that slight continual opening I mentioned before, and then as you transition to corner exit and you're able to pick the bike up, the throttle can be opened more and more as it does stand up. But the action is smooth and controlled throughout, without any huge spikes in how quickly you open it. That smooth and controlled throttle control is what's going to mean a more balanced and stable bike, and one that doesn't move unnecessarily close to the limits of traction. Okay, and that about wraps up this video and our look at the common mistakes and biggest areas of improvement for newer riders. Are there any realizations that you've had as a newer rider? Tell us about it in the comments down below. And as always, if you like the video, hit this button, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to share it with someone who you think would benefit. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.